Welcome to New World Now with your host, Kim Corbin. It's one thing to read or write a book that has the power to change our lives. It's another to live the principles and teachings from those books each day on a moment-to-moment basis. Host Kim Corbin's intention with each of her interviews is to empower us to do just that, as she talks with authors published by New World Library. They will discuss their personal journeys and share practical tools we can use to be more aware, mindful, and present in our daily lives. Now, here is your host, Kim Corbin.
Hello and Happy New Year. Welcome to the first episode of New World Now to air in 2017, a year which promises to be anything but boring given the huge changes that are currently unfolding on the political stage. I don't know about you, but all of the chaos and uncertainty that is happening out there have made the positive changes I hope to create in my inner world this year feel more important than ever. And knowing that studies show that as few as 8% of us will actually follow through on New Year's resolutions in any given year, I decided to invite author Cara Bradley, who has been in the trenches of personal transformation as a mental strength coach for over 3 decades, to come on the show to offer her guidance and insight into how each of us can shine brighter than ever in 2017. Cara's book, On the Verge, Wake Up, Show Up, and Shine, emerged from her 35 years of teaching fitness and yoga and her lifelong dedication to coaching thousands of people to experience life fully and to do so over and over again. The book is full of simple yet profound practices and strategies that are designed to help us shift out of our heads and fully into the present moment. And I've really been looking forward to kicking the new year off right with this conversation. So thanks so much for being here, Cara.
Oh, Kim, it's so great to be here. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. I would love for us to start by having you explain what you mean by the title of your book, On the Verge.
Well, the verge means several things, and it's really a metaphor that I use to represent this moment. And every moment that we are completely present in, that we can stand up in and experience fully, we do our best. We are our best. And so being on the verge is a way of reminding ourselves to show up in this moment. And the Verge also is actually a place. And many years ago, my husband spent 3 weeks on the Amazon, in the Ecuadorian Amazon, and he lived with an indigenous community. And he told me upon his return that when he came back, that when they were sailing down the rivers and the tributaries, they would often stop on one spot of land to rest, to pause, because this land, the indigenous community revered this land as being sacred. And it's on this spot of land where 2 rivers would meet, where tributaries would come together or merge into one, is where wildlife and plant life thrive. They actually thrive there. It's been researched and studied that nature thrives on this spot, and this spot is called the Verge. So when I heard that at first, when he told me, I was all over it. I wanted to know where there was a verge near me. How do you go to one? How do you live on one? And so it became a mantra for me, and it's actually the name of my yoga and meditation center, is called Verge Yoga and Meditation.
Oh, that's so great. And I also love how with the new year, we're really on the verge of a new year as well.
We are. We're always on the verge. But, I often remind people that every day could be like January 1st if we really wanted it to be. Every day we could be on the verge. We could feel that sense of freshness and aliveness and possibility if we allow ourselves to.
I love that. At Burning Man one year, there was a camp where every night at midnight, they celebrated the new day, and it would be Happy New Day.
I love it. That's exactly it. We actually could celebrate Happy New Moment if we were really to it.
I love it. Well, early in the book, you explain how over the years you've shifted your perspective from one of seeking to more of an allowing, and from doing to being. So would you speak to that a little bit, please?
Yeah. Well, I'm a Brooklyn girl, and I grew up in the middle of two brothers in a very Italian-American family. And so I became a doer and a pleaser from early on. And I was always really motivated because I kind of had to keep up with my brothers. And it unfolded into my life, into my school and businesses, and was always seeking to do the next thing and more and better. And it actually happened in a yoga pose. I was in the back of the room, and I was in what's called lizard pose, which is a deep lunge. And I woke up in this lunge and looked at myself from the outside in and saw this kind of maniac breathing and pushing and forcing myself into a place I had no business being. And in that moment, I was like, what are you doing? And I just realized from that moment on that the pushing, the seeking, the forcing, the trying was really holding me back from just allowing myself to be. And so from that moment forward, I looked for ways to be a human being instead of just always trying to be that human doing and striver and seeker.
Mm-hmm. And how does that kind of overall perspective mesh when we have tangible goals like we'd like to lose weight, for example?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question, especially this time of the year. Do I set resolutions? Do I have goals? Do I just, hope that they'll happen? What do I do? I mean, these are questions we all have. And I really think intentions are powerful. Everything that we think has transformative power, so repeating something over and over again about a way that you want to be. Perhaps it's a way of feeling and being as opposed to just achieving a number on a scale. I believe that that's really helpful. So it's a fine balance. I think like everything else in life, there is extremes. And oftentimes when we can meet ourselves in the middle of the trying, of the supporting, of the kindness, of the push, a little here, a little less there, we find a way to allow life to flow through us instead of always trying to push that rock up the mountain. Right.
Yeah. And you've been training the Villanova football team for over 12 years in your role as a mental strength coach. And I'm curious how you describe mental strength and why it's an important thing for us to consciously develop.
Yeah, I love it. I started working with the football team and the basketball team as well before any of these sports teams were doing yoga or anything like that. So I came up with the term mental strength coach because it was more palpable or digestible to these football players. They're used to having strength coaches. They know what that means. So to call myself a mental strength coach, they're like, okay, I get that. So as a mental strength coach, what I do is help strengthen minds through mindfulness training. And in my case, with a lot of athletes that I work with, we use the physical body to help train the mind. Because athletes, and most of us, honestly, are so physically inclined, we have these bodies with us all the time, that when we're moving our body, it's really much easier for us to then settle down our busy mind and to start noticing when we fall into doubt, when fear pops up, when we hold back, when we block ourselves from leaning into challenge. And so through movement, I help them see their mind and how they may be using their mind or letting their mind use them during competition. It's great fun. I love it.
And how would developing mental strength help us in our day-to-day lives?
Oh, in so many ways. And just getting to know our minds. I think it's Michael Gervais. I love his work. He's the psychologist, sports psychologist for the Seattle Seahawks. He often says that there are three ways we can train in life. We can train our bodies, which most of us do. We can train in our craft, in our skills at work or our art. And we can train our minds. But very, very few people actually train their mind. So we can train our mind like a muscle, like we train our bicep muscles. Through mindfulness training, through activities that help us develop attention, awareness, focus, through imagery, anything that we can do over and over again will help us create new pathways, new neural pathways in our mind, just as we create more strength in our physical muscles. So I think that more and more people these days are getting used to this idea or comfortable with the idea that our minds, our brains are definitely trainable. Science is now supporting us in what the meditation sages, the Buddhists, have known for thousands of years.
Yes, yes. And your book and the On the Verge app that you've created to go along with it offer a whole toolbox of practices that can help us develop this mental strength and live on the verge. And I found your suggestions in the book about how to commit to a new practice, especially timely. So I thought it would be fun to unpack some of those ideas here, starting with your advice that consistency is key.
Yes, we can't do anything well. We can't build a muscle unless we do it consistently. We have to consistently practice our piano scales in order for the muscle memory in our fingers to understand. We have to consistently work our paintbrush on the palette and on the canvas in order to have the skill to be able to do it effortlessly. So anything that we hope to achieve or gain skill in, we need to do consistently. And I think that just has to be at the top of the page. Always, whenever we try to implement anything new in our lives, how am I going to do this consistently? And so consistency is key. So the question then is, how do you create habit? How do you commit to being consistent? And my advice for people, for myself as well, whenever starting anything new, is to start small. Mm-hmm. Start small, right? This time of the year, we're all going gangbusters, right? I was at the gym this morning, and I couldn't find a parking spot, at the front of the gym. We're all going gangbusters, which is so great and so inspiring. But oftentimes, we just bite off too much. So start small. Start with a short meditation practice. Start with a shorter workout, or maybe not as intense, but do it over and over. So my little mantra is, start small, stay steady, and you'll build from there. It'll become more effortless when you do that.
Right. You also say that timing is everything when starting a new practice.
Yeah, because if it's inconvenient, we're not going to do it. We're just not. We are just creatures of habit. We want things at our fingertips. So, for instance, I guide a lot of people in cultivating a consistent meditation practice. You want to find the time that's going to be the most consistent. So for many people, it's early morning, because that is something that is most reliable. Your early mornings, generally, we have a little more, quote unquote, control over our mornings. Or it could be the few minutes before you get out of the car to go into work. What is most reliable, those time slots in your daily life? So you want to look at that in your schedule before committing to a new practice.
And then also to stay flexible.
Yeah, because, stuff happens, right? and you're going to get thrown off course. I know, as a yoga studio owner, and I'm in the Philadelphia area, so we get occasional snow. And I'm always just praying that, the snow doesn't come too early in the new year, because, and I hate to even say this and jinx myself, but because when we get a snowstorm, if it's significant or if it's maybe a day or two of inconvenience, it will trip people up. Those folks that are, okay, I'm going to get to yoga 3 days a week. The folks that aren't fully committed, they'll get tripped up and they'll kind of fall off the wagon pretty early. So, you need to be flexible and recognize that you're going to get tripped up in your practice, and just to recognize that and get right back at it as soon as you can.
Right. And then also, I really like the idea of remembering the why. So can you tell us about that?
Yes, I love this. Thanks for reminding me of this one. So when you're in your practice or when you're cultivating a new habit, say, it's so easy to use the body because we're such physical beings, so viscerally motivated. Say you're out for your early morning walk and you see this gorgeous sunrise and your body is feeling great and sweat's flowing and your breath is coming and you feel alive. Remember that. Note it. Note all the times during these practices that you're trying to form. Note the moment when you feel your clear mind, when you feel your bright body, when you feel alive and awake, because those moments are going to be your signposts when you're considering not going for the walk, when you're considering not sitting down, when your mind is telling you that you could be doing so many other things but going to the gym. Remember the why. Remember the feeling, that sweat, the glow, the aliveness, the awakefulness. Remember it. Come back to it. And that may just help coax you back into your practice instead of heading for the fridge, Yeah.
Get out of bed in the morning instead of snuggling back in. And also, you say to keep building momentum.
Yeah. So practice builds momentum, right? So, at the end of a yoga practice or a spin class or a meditation practice or even a contemplative prayer practice, there's this sense of clarity or presence. And when you practice, that sense of being present, of being alive, it is cumulative. So you'll be able to come back to that end point, to that sense of being much more quickly the more you practice. So I know for me lately, I've been right back at my morning journaling practice. And when I stop journaling, it's a little harder for me to get back into. My hand feels a little stiff, so to speak. But after a few times, there's a momentum that builds. And it's much easier for me to get right back into it. So our practices are like this snowball. And when we're committed and consistent, they start to churn almost effortlessly without our having to think about it as much as we did at the very beginning.
Yes. Yes. There's just so much in your book, and the idea of living on the verge sounds like such a wonderful, happy place to be. And I really appreciated how you point out in the book that it's not always about being blissed out and happy. And in the book you write, if you want to directly experience being fully alive and intimately connected with the richness of your open heart, you'll need to embrace everything, not just the sweet moments, but every moment. To experience the highest of highs, you must be available for the lowest of lows, to face stuff you are inclined to push away, avoid, or ignore. So can you speak to that a little bit, please?
Yeah, I'd love to. First, I'd love to refer back to the Verge and being on the verge, living on the verge in this moment, fully present, fully available for life, fully engaged with what's arising, what's emerging in this moment, in this moment, in this moment. So life is constantly arising, meeting us right where we're at. We have no idea what's going to happen in the next moment. So to become available to life, it's where we thrive. Kim, it's something I learn every single day as a business owner, as an employer, as a teacher, as a parent, to be available and to meet life where it is right now. It's not always going to be blissful, but something that I've grown to trust in my own experience is that if I can meet life with my heart wide open, my palms up, my mind clear, and my body just willing to experience whatever sensations, outer sensations are coming at me, I'm going to thrive. I'm going to shine. And so I talk about in my book a story, a situation, a life-changing event that happened to me actually while I was writing the book, when a very dear friend's son went missing. A 13-year-old son came in, and my husband and I were first responders to our very dear friends of many, many years. And the entire town, this whole area outside of Philadelphia, went searching for Cayman for a few days after a snowstorm, only to find out that he had taken his own life. And it just, it stopped me in my tracks, and I was standing by the side of my very dear friend Becky for 4 days, for actually 2 weeks, but 4 days while Cayman was missing, completely present, completely out of my own skin, out of my own life, out of my own fears of being a parent, completely available for her. And I didn't do it because I was skilled. I did it because life asked me to be there for her. And, in that moment, I felt like I really shined for her as a friend. I could do nothing but just be there. Just be there and hold her. And boy, did that change the course of my life. It actually changed the course of my book as well.
I really appreciated that you added that in that chapter, because I think when people think about this kind of work, it's easy to think of just the positive end, and we have to be able to say yes to whatever life calls of us. So thanks for including that.
Yes. No, thank you.
And then letting go of things and people and thought patterns that no longer serve us so we can make room for the new positive changes that we're hoping to make is especially important this year. So I really enjoyed the Verge strategy in the book called Let It Go, Let It Be, and I've been playing with it a lot. And in that chapter, you say that letting go begins with being honest about our tendency to force, fix, or flee. So would you talk about forcing, fixing, and fleeing, and how we can begin to recognize that?
Yeah, and I chuckle because I'm constantly finding myself forcing, fixing, and fleeing even still. But that's what we do. We try to control life in every moment. And when we try to make things work for us, when life is flowing in a different direction, we end up struggling and suffering. And those around us may end up suffering as well. So my meditation teacher, Scott McBride, he has told me many, many times that if he could sum up the entire process of becoming awakened, he would sum it up in 2 words, and that is to let go. To let go. Let go of who we think we are. Let go of what we think we need, and to allow. Continuously allow the flow of life to move through us and with us and guide us. And so when we can start to shift beyond our busy mind, which is really one of the, it's really the entire beginning of what I talk about On the Verge, is just allowing ourselves to shift into the space beyond our busyness. We start to be able to see our mind and what our busy mind is so busy doing. We start to notice those moments in life when we're trying to force people or situations, when we're trying to fix, and we all fix constantly, and when we're trying to run away from reality and what we're being called to do. And this is the process of unfolding, unblocking, letting go of the mental constructs, the patterns that hold us back and hold us down. My whole passion for teaching is to help people really step into their full human potential. And that potential comes through us when we're present, when we show up in this moment, on the verge, in this moment, fully available for life. So there's so many different angles for us to look at, and so many of the New World Library authors talk about all of these different angles. And that's what makes this process of awakening so wonderful, is that there's so many facets of the jewel for us to play with, to look at all the time.
Yes, and each of us bring our unique perspective to it, which that's another thing I really appreciated about your book, is how you say this is kind of the template, but you need to write your own things that you say to yourself and really make it personal.
Yes, and in fact, when I submitted my draft for this book, it had a bunch of quotes in it, and Georgia, my editor, and I decided to fearlessly, I must say, take out every single quote that anybody else had ever written. And it's not because they weren't wonderful, but because truly what I offer is my own direct experience. And the call that I offer to everyone out there is to really live from your own direct experience, to use the words of others and the teaching of the sages and the brilliant masters to support your experience, but to truly step every foot forward from that which you have experienced yourself.
Yes. Well, Cara, thank you so much for being here with me today and for just, using your experience to help us be able to translate our own experiences.
Well, thank you. And it's been such an honor, such an honor, Kim, to work with you and to have this chat with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. For more information about Cara Bradley and On the Verge, you can visit her online at carabradley.net. And also be sure to check out her On the Verge podcast, in which she offers a weekly blast of no hype advice and essential practices to settle down, show up, and shift from crazy busy to high definition, high voltage living. I'd also like to invite you to join the New World Now podcast community on Facebook, where you can be a part of discussions about current episodes and stay up to date on the latest and greatest podcast news. Just search New World Now podcast on Facebook to join the group. I'll hope to see you there and look forward to connecting on future episodes of New World Now.
Thank you for listening to New World Now with Kim Corbin from New World Library. New World Library publishes books and audio that inspires and challenges us to improve the quality of our lives and our world. For more information about their books and authors, visit them online at newworldlibrary.com.
If Unity Online Radio has helped you grow spiritually through programs like this one, please consider supporting this online radio programming. Visit www.unity.fm and click on Donate Now. Thank you for helping us continue to serve as the voice of an awakening world.